anyone, or they could be transferred on death. So, you know, the justification for the development, if you like, would cease to exist, if it even exists in the first place. As I understand it, the government's amended planning guidelines do talk about net zero. However, older people are actually more likely to need private transport. And really, realistically, with this site, all the main services like large shops, hospitals, are in either Falkirk or Stirling or further afield. So the net zero argument doesn't really hold up, in my opinion. The planning guidelines also do say that development in Greenbelt is to be limited in any event. And so at the time when members are making the decision, I would then ask them to refuse the application on the ground that it's contrary to the plan in as much as it's in Greenbelt. In relation to my other ground of objection, and I did submit an objection detailing this, and I see that it has been summarised in the report. I just want to reiterate points specifically in relation to hedgehogs, which are my main interest. First of all, the ecological appraisal didn't actually make any reference to these, despite the fact that they are listed as priority species in the Council's Biodiversity Action Plan, and also they are what's known as red listed, which means that they are now classed as vulnerable to extinction in the UK, and that's an official classification, the IUCN's red list of British mammals. Now, hedgehogs are actually highly mobile animals. They travel between 1 and 2 kilometres a night, and they are known to frequent this site. But they don't just travel between individual gardens, they travel in a landscape context. And so loss of a site like this would not just affect hedgehogs on the site, but they would also affect hedgehogs over a larger area. So I think the other parts of my objection, the fact also that there wasn't really proper consultation with any wildlife groups, as far as I'm aware. There's actually a wildlife centre virtually opposite the site, and no one there, that's the Eden Animal Sanctuary and Wildlife Centre, no one there was consulted or knew anything about the application. I'm also a member of Falkirk Wildlife Conservation Group, and again, they hadn't been consulted either. So the ecological appraisal is not really comprehensive. So on behalf of a species which has existed for millions of years in the UK and which is now sadly at risk of extinction in the UK, I would ask that when the decision is made that members would refuse the application on that ground as opposed to the other ground, or on both grounds, depending on how members were minded. So thank you for hearing me.
Thank you very much for coming along. Would the applicant's agent, Mr. Jones, would you like to, sorry?
Yet.
Not quite yet. Oh, sorry. I believe there's another objector is online. Yeah. Which one?
Sir Kerr's got his hand up.
Oh, yeah. Mr. Kerr, Councillor Kerr, Bailey Kerr.
Thanks, convener. I just probably the applicant's agent would probably answer the question. The objector just came in and says that it was a care village, and I don't think that's what the applicant says when he put his submission in. That was maybe a previous thing, but there's no restriction to age. I'm sure that's what Councillor Forrest already asked the gentleman. I just wanted the clarification of that. That was all.
Yeah, I think we can clarify that. The answer to Councillor Forrest was that it's not a care village. Okay.
Yep, thanks, convener.
Yeah. Mr. Henderson.
Thank you, convener. And I think that's a point that perhaps the applicant's agent could pick up during the opportunity for a right to reply to the parties, interested parties who are speaking to their representations. Thank you, convener.
Louise Montgomery, online. Yep, I see you.
Hi there. Hi, can you hear me okay?
can hear you fine, thanks.
Yeah, my camera's not working, so I'm not going to be able to put that on, I'm afraid. I'm a resident, me and my husband are a resident in the local area, and we also object to this for a few reasons. First of all, when talking about consultation with the local area, I know that the planning developers went to the community council, but this wasn't really made clear to the local residents at all. I actually saw about the meeting on Facebook the day of the meeting, and that was the first time that I'd heard about it. So it would be, we would like it if there was more opportunity for consultation for that. In terms of reasons why we object, we live just opposite the site here, and the road on that road there is very busy. So it's a 30-mile-an-hour road, but if anybody drives past it, you'll know that a lot of people don't do 30 miles an hour on that road, and the road is busy enough with traffic from the motorway that comes through that way. If this village was to be put there, there would be more traffic going on the road, which would then become an issue, particularly when the primary school's just up the road there, and there's a lot of children walking on that road to and from school. Like the objector before said as well, the area is a green belt, so there's lots of nature there that would be removed if the development was to go forward. So, for example, there's lots of deer that stay there, so there's a whole family, I suppose you would say, of deer there that have actually located there because of buildings in other areas. And if that was to be built on, then they would obviously lose their habitat. Local services in the area are already fairly stretched. In fact, they're very stretched. So I had to book a doctor's appointment, and it was 2 weeks already for a doctor's appointment in the local area. With extra population there, particularly if it is an elderly population, that's going to put further strain on those services, but also services such as the school, the primary school up the road, which is at capacity. The building work on the road would cause major obstruction because of where it is and because the road's so busy. If vehicles were trying to get in and out when the building work was taking place, that would cause major disruption, particularly because most of the houses here don't have drives, so cars are parked on the road, and then obviously there'd be the work vehicles there as well. And just regarding the category that is targeted towards older people, again, I think that's probably a bit misleading, because if anybody's able to buy a house there, then it's obviously open to anybody buying that. So to assume that older people would want to buy it or be able to buy it maybe isn't actually correct. Thank you.
Thanks very much for your contribution. Moving into David Jones. Do we have Gillian McDonald online?
Hi there, it's Gillian and Alistair McDonald, but I'm afraid I didn't manage to type that in properly. Can you hear me okay?
That's fine, we can hear you, thanks.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
And weirdly enough, my camera is playing up as well, so there's obviously something going on. I'd like to speak up in support of the development. My wife and I both live in the immediate area. We both have elderly parents who live in the area as well, and we're actually in the process of considering trying to find a suitable bungalow accommodation for one of our parents, and it is extremely difficult. I think that the agent got it absolutely right when they identified we have an elderly and growing elderly population with an increased demand, and for me it's about supporting their ability to continue independent living and living in the community that they've lived in all their lives. And I think that's really vital, and I think from my point of view that this style of housing, which is quite rare in the area, is really needed, and it would allow our parents to stay self-sufficient as long as possible, and that's really important to us. I think we would probably also draw on the fact that I appreciate absolutely the regulatory aspect of the application and the green belt that it refers to, but I probably would also ask you to look at the map that was brought up immediately before the start of the meeting, which indicated it leads onto Glasgow Road. The opposite side of that road is the town of, or the village of Head of Muir, or Denelon Head, depending on which point of it you're on. And so, whilst it is Greenbelt, it is immediately adjacent to the main road, so it's not in the middle of a kind of beauty spot or out of town or everything. It's been a development. In terms of the size of the development, 20 houses, I appreciate there will be some demand, but as a personal note, if my mother-in-law moves to it, she's going to move a distance of about 500 metres. She'll still use the same facilities. She'll still go to the same doctor. I appreciate there may be some change, but for 20 houses, I wouldn't imagine the impact would be that great. Appreciating also the elderly aspect to it. It may well attract other people, or it may not. But obviously, I'm sure we can't stipulate that. I suppose just that, in conclusion, I just think it would be something that would really, really support our needs, the needs of the elderly population, and considering its location, it's perfect. It's on a main bus route. It's immediately adjacent to a shop and other facilities. So from our point of view, it would be perfect. Thank you, Convener.
Thanks very much, Mr. MacDonald. Right. Okay, Mr. Jones, as the applicant's agent, would you like a right of reply to what you've heard?
Thank you again, Convener. Just if I can run through some of the points that have been raised in the last few minutes. First of all, this is a simple, straightforward residential development. There will be no age restrictions. These properties will be open to anyone who chooses or is looking for a smaller home on a small plot. Access road, we've heard some commentary in relation in terms of how busy it is. Your own roads transportation officials have looked at this. There's nothing in principle that would prevent development going ahead. There are some details which we are intending to take through this coming week, in fact, with your roads officials to resolve any outstanding matters. Following that, we would hope to get a sign-off on the basis of the access road arrangements. Greenbelt and nature, I can take those 2 points together if I may. The area has clearly got a Greenbelt designation attached to it. From a developer's point of view, we believe that the introduction of National Planning Framework 4 requires all councils to look more carefully at locations so close to existing town and village centres. This site fits that bill. We believe it would help support the existing community. It would help support use of existing services, shops and facilities. And on that basis, we feel it worthwhile. The nature comments, and particularly hedgehogs, I've replied to your case officer on the basis that our first ecological survey was prepared as a baseline survey, and upon that, there will be it is open to the council to apply or attach planning conditions requiring further information to be brought forward, particularly before construction works start, should the council move to detailed planning consent. And I think the background report itself confirms there's no schooling issues at the moment, nor is there any projected shortfalls. And in relation to building and construction works, the next detailed phase of this operation would require a construction environmental management plan that would assess and provide details of how the construction phase would take place. We believe on that basis, Convener, this is an application to be supported. Thank you.
Thanks very much, David. Now, does any member of the committee have any questions for any of the people who have already spoken? Well,
this is a question for yourself. How many of the units will be for social housing?
We've seen from the background report there will be a requirement on the basis of 21 units that 3 of those would be for social housing.
Okay. So these will be for rent for anybody, really?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. So in regarding the hedgehogs, I presume Moira's done a study and there's hedgehogs there, but so let's say there's hedgehogs there. What can a developer do to protect them?
Well, there are various mitigation measures that can be brought forward prior to the construction phase. First of all, you would identify where the hedgehog runs are. Introduction of hedgehog hotels, basically, where you provide nesting sites and safe and secure areas for the hedgehogs to pass through. We heard from the previous contributor that hedgehogs can travel at some distance. So we would see this particular site linking into that network so the hedgehogs will not be disturbed in terms of what they would do naturally.
Right. So you would liaise with sort of Moira's organisation or such like to ensure that if there's a lot of hedgehogs there that it'd be protected?
Happy to do so, convener.
Okay. Very good.
Very much, Provost. Sorry. Thanks very much, Provost. Anyone else? Any questions? No? Thanks again. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, thanks again, Mr. Jones. Now, members may identify any planning issues that they wish to see addressed with the officer's report to the committee. If there's anything anyone wishes to raise at this time.
Is there anyone here for roads that might like to make some commentary on the roads?
Is there anyone from roads?
Maybe Craig would like to make any comment.
Would you like to make any comment, Craig?
Hi, convener. Through you, the only comment we would make would be to refer you to the report. The consultations are mentioned in there. Happy to take any questions on that.
Any questions? Okay, Councillor Flynn.
Yep. Thank you, convener. One question on the road stroke transport and another question regarding the schooling. If I deal with the roads transport, it mentions in the report that 4.14 that the site has to be easily serviced by a 12-metre long refuse vehicle. Based on the plans that we see there, or has there been any discussion to ensure that this plan meets that requirement, that the vehicles can access, get in and get out of the site easily? Bearing in mind the size of the vehicle.
So to Mr. Russell, yeah.
Convener, can I speak on behalf of TPU?
Sure.
Thank you. The applicant has submitted swept path analysis demonstrating that the junction is almost right size for accommodating a refuse vehicle, although no plans have been submitted to demonstrate a refuse vehicle can get in and through the site, primarily because it's an outline planning application, so the detail hasn't been submitted. We have gone back to the applicant to request that further tracking is undertaken and to support amendments to the access junction.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, convener. My second question really relates to Denny High School. It says, sorry, I'm just getting the page, that planned growth in the Denny High catchment area is expected to put pressure on the school longer term, and this requires the school to be extended. Do we, or could we have for the next meeting, do we know what the actual current capacity is and what the planned growth is, either including or excluding this site, should it be granted permission? To see what the actual numbers are, because I think it's quite important to have these set of numbers, convener. Hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense, totally. Is there any level education online? No, so we'll have to bring that back to.
Okay, thank you.
When the floor planning comes through. Okay, thanks, Mr. Councillor Flynn. Yeah. I don't think there's any other hands, any other questions. So, yeah. So that's us at the close of the meeting. Thanks very much everyone for attending and have a good evening. Bye.
Thanks, Convener.